All right, it seems we are live. Hey guys, welcome back to another live workshop. In today's workshop, we're going to be building an admin panel with DynamoDB, which is going to be very awesome because I realized that we don't have any video content on DynamoDB. So this is going to be one way for you to know everything you need to know when it comes to building CRUD apps on Appsmith using DynamoDB. So if you're just joining in, I can see we already have a couple of people watching this video live. If you're just joining in, let us know where you're joining in from the chat, and please say hello. Would love to meet you. So I'll look forward to getting your messages on the chat. So let us know where you're joining in from, and let us know that you have joined this live stream by saying hello on the chat. All right, so while I wait for your comments to roll in, I'd just like to show you guys that I am putting on my Appsmith branded t-shirt today. I'm very proud of this shirt. I think I tweeted about it a few weeks ago, and people really loved this shirt. So if you love to get yours, stay tuned for Hacktoberfest. It's just next month, and we'll be sharing details on how you can participate in Appsmith Hacktoberfest so that you can grab your swags like this shirt or even a water bottle or something even cooler. So once again, I'm wearing my really proud Appsmith shirt. All right, so that's enough for my intro. So let's get into business. I'm going to share my screen and show you what we are going to be building today so that everyone has an idea of what we'll be taking a look at, and then we can go on from there. So let me go ahead to share my screen. Let's share my screen. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to move things. I believe you can see my screen. If you can, just let me know in the chats so that I know everyone is able to see my screen. But if you can't see my screen, let me know also in the chat so that I know if I'm having any issues with sharing my screen. But if you should be able to see my screen, and I think we can get started. So I'm just going to minimize this window so that it doesn't take too much space. All right. So what we're going to be building today is an admin panel using DynamoDB. And the reason why this is very interesting is because DynamoDB can be challenging to work with if this is your first time using DynamoDB. I'll go into details as we build this along, but today's demo will show you how to build an admin panel with DynamoDB. And we're going to be covering all of the CRUD basics. So we're going to be able to create records to the database. As you can see, we have a form right here where we can go create records, and that's going to get saved into the database. Then, of course, we can read data from the database. As you can see, a table here. So I'm just going to refresh the application, and the read query is going to run in, pull data from DynamoDB, and have it displayed right here on Appsmith. So all of this is going to be possible, or I'm going to show you how to do all of this in today's live stream. Seems to have an error, so let's reload this one more time. All right, and we have the suite data being displayed right here on the table. The next thing I'll show you how to do is update data. As you can see, we don't have a separate from UI for updating. Everything we need to do when it comes to updating is going to be done inline in the table widget itself. So this is a really cool feature of the table widget v2. So I can go in, for example, and update the quantity right here in line inside of the table to something else. And let's go probably change. What else should we change? So let's say for the description, this is too long. I'm just going to delete all of that. And we're able to update that data inline inside of the table widget. And I can go ahead to click on the save button, and that's going to get written to the database. In fact, I should just do that to show you this works. All right, and you can see that the quantity has been updated. And lastly, I'll show you how to create a flow to delete records from the database. So we have this delete icon here. If I go ahead to click on this, we'll have that item deleted from the database, and it's gone. So this is what we would take in a look at in today's video. I'm going to show you, not today's video, today's live stream. So I'm going to show you exactly how to build this out on Appsmith. All right, so one other thing I would like to show you is that as I was working on this application for today's live stream, I built a tool that makes it possible for you to import CSV data to DynamoDB. So if you already have data from a different database, maybe Postgres, you can have it exported out as CSV and use this tool to take your data out and put it in DynamoDB. So that's essentially what this tool is for. If you love to have access to both the app we'll be building today, everything we'll be building in this app, all of the code, and also the import CSV to DynamoDB tool, it's available right here on our GitHub repo. So I'm just going to show this to you. Okay, so this is the direct link. I'm going to be putting it in the chat right now. All right, so that's the direct link to go check out everything we'll be doing today. I'm also going to leave it in the comment section for those who will be coming to watch this later on so that they can go directly take a look at the app JSON. So this is the app JSON. All you need to do is have this downloaded, then go to your Appsmith dashboard. So let's say app.appsmith.com, and you want to import that app JSON. So say, for example, I want to import that into my tutorials workspace. What I need to do is come over here, click on imports, click on import file, and here I'm going to go ahead to select the app JSON. So that's the app JSON, which is the entire complete app consisting of both the dashboard and the CSV to DynamoDB JSON tool. Then this is the dummy data that was used for today's live stream. It's also right here, and also have a README file with some instruction. So this is what you need to get started. So if you like to check out the code of what we're going to be doing in today's demo, please go check out this URL. I have it in the chat, and I'm also going to put it as a pinned comment later on. All right, so with that, I think we can get started. So what I'm going to do is walk you through creating tables in DynamoDB. The first thing you need to do to actually get started is create a user account for connecting to Appsmith. So you need an authenticated user account, which is going to have an access key and a secret key. So once you are in your AWS console, I am in, what you need to do is first go search for I am. And that should be the first result coming up here. So what you want to do is click on I am. All right, then under access management, you have to go to users. And what you do here is create a new user. You have to give it some name. And at the end of the day, you would have an access key generated and a secret key generated. That is going to allow you to connect to DynamoDB from Appsmith. So once you have that user profile created, what you need to do is head back to DynamoDB dashboard. So right here in the console, just search for DynamoDB. All right, it's going to be the first result here. And if this is your first time using AWS DynamoDB, you won't have it, so you can go ahead to create a table. But I already have a table, so I'm just going to delete this table and we'll recreate a new one so that I show you how easy it is to create a table using DynamoDB. So let's select this, and what I want to do is delete the table. So let's say delete. All right. All right, so this table is going to be deleted. I'm going to create a new table, or if you are coming in from the dashboard, this is going to be the create table button over here. I think I should zoom in a bit so that it makes it easier for everyone to see. I hope this is better. So I'm going to go ahead to create a new table, and let's call this table products. All right, so for the partition key, this is DynamoDB's term of primary key. So this is going to be an ID that would have a type of string. And for everything else, I'm just going to make sure that we have this set to an on-demand capacity mode. I'm going to leave everything as default. You can take your time to read through the instructions. Let's go ahead to create a new table. All right, so we have a table that is being created. And if I try to refresh this, okay, it's still being created. So let's give this some time to create. But something you notice is that while I was creating this table, I had my region set to Frankfurt. If you take a look at this drop down, that region is EU Central. So you can actually have the same table created across multiple regions. It's going to be the same table, but it's going to be sitting on different servers. So you should have that in mind, because this information will be required when connecting to Appsmith. You need to tell Appsmith what region the table or the resource you want to interact with seats. So right now, my region is set to EU Central 1, Frankfurt, and it's right here in the drop down. So we have that created, and if we take a look at this table, it's going to be entirely empty, which is fine, but we can upload data to this table using the CSV to DynamoDB JSON. So let's use this tool right here. What I'm going to do is go select a CSV file. So I have this product.csv. This is what you saw in the GitHub repo, and this is selected. So we have 99 items in the CSV file. And here I need to supply the table I want it to be uploaded to. So I'm just going to go ahead to upload it. Also, by the way, this app is already connected to my AWS user. So that's why I don't need to specify any connection credentials right here from the UI. So go check out the code on the GitHub repo and everything will be much clearer. So we have that data uploaded and we can go check. So let's go to explore items. And as you can see, we have data right here in AWS. And this is 99 records as you saw from the CSV to DynamoDB JSON util. All right, so we have data in DynamoDB. Let's go ahead to connect to DynamoDB and start building our application. So let me also zoom in here so that it makes it easier for you to see what we'll be doing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead to create a new app. All right, and the next thing I'll do here is I'm going to connect to DynamoDB using the credentials of my IAM user. So let's go to data sources and scroll down to DynamoDB right here. All right. Then what I'm going to do here is select my region. For me, this is going to be EU Central 1. All right. And then I also need to supply my access key and also my secret key. All right, that's done. So I can test this to see if my connection is valid. It is. I'm just going to rename this to Dynamo. All right, and this looks good. So I'm going to save this, and there we have a data source that we can use to query our products table on DynamoDB. So the first thing that I want to do here is write a query to get items from the database. So let's call this get items. All right, and for the action, this is going to be a scan command because we want to grab a bunch of items from DynamoDB. So it's going to be a scan command to take a look at the entire table and bring all of the data out. So it's not going to be a get item, rather it's going to be a scan command. So we have the scan command here, and this expects us to pass in a table name. So this is going to be a table name, all right, and this is going to be the product table. Okay, so this looks good. I'm just going to run this query. And here we have a bunch of sweet items, or actually sweet products coming back from the database. So we have all of our records coming back, and that looks good. We can go display this in the UI by building a table. Let's do that. So I'm just going to go grab a table widget. All right, this is a nice table widget. Expand it all the way. And while we're at it, I'm just also going to grab the button widget, drop this right here. All right, that looks good. So for the table widget, what I want to do is bind it to the data coming from the get items query. So let's do that. So this is going to be get items.data, and this has an array of items. So we want to also access that. And here we can see all of the data coming in from the database. So let's rearrange the columns a little bit. I want the ID to come up at the top. Something I also want to do is set the image column to be of type image. So let's set this to type image. And here we'll have a little preview of the product that is being pulled from the database. And I think this looks nice. So we have a little nice table right here. The other settings we need to fix here on the table widget is we want to make it editable, as you saw here in the finished app. We want to make it editable. Yeah, we want to make it editable, and we also want to have a delete icon row right here. So let's go ahead to build this right here on the table widget. So to have that set up on the table widget, what we want to do is we want to make the table editable. So I'm just going to mark this as editable. And as you can see, we actually have all of that information right here. You can see we have a little pen icon, which means we can actually edit that column. But for the ID, we don't want this to be editable. So I'm just going to turn this off, and you can see the ID column is no longer editable, but everything else is editable. And also for the image column, this is no longer editable because it's an image, so we can't edit it. But if we want this to be editable, what we need to do is we want to go back here and set this to text. So let's see, plain text. And that's also going to become editable. So if we head back, we can also mark this as editable in cases where you want to be able to edit the image URL. All right, so that's nice. Something you also notice here is that we have a new column called save stroke discard. So when we go make an edit like you saw earlier, we're going to be able to save that edit or discard it so that we don't have any pending changes. That's if we don't want to write that change to the database. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead to add the delete icon here as well, so that we're able to delete a row that we don't want to make use of anymore. So let's go and do that. So I'm going to add a new custom. I'm going to add a new custom column. So let's go and do that. All right, so this is going to be called delete. All right, and for this column, it is going to have a type of icon. But the icon, this is going to be a trash icon. All right, that's a trash icon. And as you can see, it's already showing up right here on the table. So let's make sure that the button style is secondary, and we can make this red, and that looks nice. And we can head back and make sure that the delete button comes before the save and discard button. And this looks nice. So we actually have the table done, and here we are able to edit stuff, but at this point we can't yet write that data to the database. So this looks cool, and we have the table coming along. So the next thing we want to do here is we want to be able to create records in the database. So for the CRUD workflow, we've taken a look at the read records operation. Now let's start with C, which is creating records to the database. So for that, we'll need to have a form that lets us input in data, and then we can take the data from that form and stick it into DynamoDB. So that's exactly what we'll be doing right here. So for the form, what we want to do is have that open up in a modal. We want to put the form in a modal, so I'm going to grab a modal widget. All right. All right, so this is a nice modal widget, and I'm just going to delete the buttons. Then we want the form widget. Actually, we're going to use the JSON form widget. So let's say form. So we have a regular form widget. We're going to be going with the JSON form widget because we want the form to be dynamically created from the columns of the table. So I'll show you what I mean in a second, but this is the form widget. All right. And what I'm going to do is let's turn the scroll bar from the modal widget. And for the form widget, I'm going to make sure that this does not have a border radius and a box shadow so that it blends well into the modal widget. All right, so that's for the form widget. One other thing is I'm going to turn off the title from the form widget because the actual title is going to come from the modal widget, and we can say something like new products. All right, so that looks good. And here we have a nice looking form. So the next thing we want to do here is that we want to configure the JSON form widget so that its source data comes from the columns on the table widget. So as you can see from the table widget, we have columns like ID, title, image, quantity, expired price, description. So we want to generate a form using the data from the table widget so that that form is dynamic and we don't have to keep changing things in cases where you want to swap the application with a different table that has a different column structure. So let's jump back into the JSON form widget, and here we can grab the table column information from a key called column order. All right, and if you take a look at this column order key, you can see that it has the entire information about our table and also has two extra columns, which the first is for the delete icon button. And the last one you're seeing right here is for the save discard column that was generated when we made the table editable. So let's filter out these two items because we don't actually need that, and that's actual table metadata. So let's do a dot filter. And what we want to do here is that if I is not equal to custom column 1 and also edit actions 1, we want it to pass through this filter. So this is going to be and I not equal to edit actions 1. It's going to pass through this filter. As you can see, we only have the actual column data from the data coming in from DynamoDB. So this looks nice. The next thing we want to do here is that this is an array, but the JSON form widget takes in an object that has key value pairs. So we want to convert this array into an object, and we have a really nice JS util to help us do that. So we have the reducer function. So we can reduce this, and the reduce function takes or has an accumulator and a current value. Then for the actual reducer logic, this is going to be returning an object, and we want to initialize the accumulator to an empty object. So what we want to do for each iteration of the reducer function is we want to go spread whatever was already there in the accumulator. Then we want to create a new key for the current item, which will be an item in the array, and we want to set its value to an empty string. So if you take a look at what we have here, we've generated an object from an array, which is just wonderful. And you can see that we actually have the form being rendered based on our JavaScript expression here, which is lovely. So this is why I really love Appsmith. You can really do whatever you want with JavaScript. So this looks nice. The next thing we want to do here is start customizing the form because actually we don't want the ID to be part of the input. This should be generated and not supplied by the user. So we can do two things. We can actually add the ID field to our ignore list right here, or we can go into the JSON form widget and just turn this off. So whichever works for you, it's all possible either ways. So that's our form here. I think I should just make this a little bit taller so that we're able to see. Yeah, that's better. We're able to see everything we need to see. So this is the UI for updating a record. Now, let's start working on a query to take the information from this form and save it into DynamoDB. For that, we need to create a new query using the DynamoDB data source. And what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be using the omnibar for navigation. So can you see this omnibar right here? If you click on it, you can actually do a lot with the omnibar. So think of the omnibar like the command palette in Sublime or VS Code if you use any of those IDs. So with it, you can easily perform navigations, you can create new entities, you can use snippet, and you can search into the documentation from within Appsmith. So these are the commands right here for macOS. If you are taking a look at this from a different operating system, you would see the key bindings for using the omnibar. And of course, you can hit the question mark on your keyboard each time, or anytime rather, to see the full set of keyboard navigation shortcuts on Appsmith. So let's go create a new item, and I'm going to be using the shortcuts on Appsmith. So we want to create a new query using the DynamoDB JSON database rather, and this is going to be the create item query. And for the command or the action, this is going to be put item. So I'm going to scroll down to put item. Okay, I actually should scroll up. Where is it? So let's look for put item. Okay, that is put item. So we have the query created. Now for the actual thing we need to send up to DynamoDB, I'm going to take a moment to explain how DynamoDB works. So I have a JSON here, and let's take a look at this JSON. I'm going to hide the response pane. So if you take a look at this, this looks very straightforward. This query right here is saying that we want to save an item into a table called user, and the record or the data we want to save into the table called user is this user object here to here. And you can see a user has an ID, which is a string, the user has a name, which is also a string, the user has an age, which is a number, email, and the user also has an array of friends, and the items in that array is an object which actually represents a user having a name and an age. So this is very straightforward. This looks really straightforward. Nothing is confusing here. But the problem is that this is not how DynamoDB works. Yeah, that's the problem. To save this exact same information into DynamoDB, this is what we would need to pass. So take a look at this. This is what we need to pass. It's the same data, but DynamoDB uses DynamoDB JSON, which is not JSON. The difference between DynamoDB and the difference between JSON and DynamoDB JSON is that for DynamoDB JSON, which DynamoDB uses, you have to provide the type information of the data you're saving into the database. So for example, this is the user's ID. This has been expanded into an object, and this is the type, string, S for string, and the actual value. Take a look at the age. This is the age. This has been expanded into an object, and the type is supplied number, and this is the actual value. Same also goes for every other key here. So you can see for the friends array, this has been converted into an object that has a type of list, which is DynamoDB JSON's array type. And for each user or for each friend, this has been converted into a map. And here's where we can see the friend's name, which also has its type, and the friend's age, which is also typed. So this is what DynamoDB expects us to send up the wire whenever we make a request. And this can be almost impossible to use because you have to provide the type information for every little data you want to send up. So what we're doing at Appsmith is that we're working on a fix so that what you have to do is just apply JSON, and behind the scenes, Appsmith would convert it into the types that are required, and you can just send up JSON up the wire. Appsmith will take care of it, and you don't have to worry about that. So that's a fix, or that's an improvement that is going to come to the DynamoDB data source on Appsmith. So it's going to be coming soon on Appsmith. But right now, a workaround would be to use this function that I was able to put together. So let's create a file. So I'm going to be using the omnibar right here, and we're going to be creating a JavaScript file. I'm going to call this utils, and for this file, I'm just going to paste in the contents from my notes. So what this file does is that if you give it a JSON, it's going to convert it to DynamoDB JSON with all of the type information required. So you need to call utils.toDJSON for DynamoDB JSON, and this is going to run the format function for you. So you access it using the toDynamoDB JSON, and this is just going to work. Like I mentioned earlier, this is part of the app in the GitHub repo. So if you'd love to take a look at this code and see what is really happening here, that's in the format code. If you'd love to really take a look at this, it's available right here in the, oh, that's the wrong thing. So I'm just going to copy the GitHub link one more time to show you. So it's available right here in the GitHub repo, and it's going to be inside of this app. So you just have to import this app, and you'd have access to it. All right, so that looks good. Now let's head back to the create item query. So what we would need to do is that instead of actually passing up the DynamoDB JSON, with the utility function we have, what we can do is, if you have data that looks like a user object like this, we just need to take this and call utils.toDynamoDB JSON, pass in that data. And if you take a look at the evaluated value pane, you can see that the type information for this data has been generated, and that is actually what will be used in this query. So this makes it really easy to work with DynamoDB. So go take a look at it when you can. So now let's actually start creating the real create item query. So for this, I'm just going to delete all of this out. All right, because that was just an example. The table name for us is going to be products. And for the item we want to save into the database, this is going to be a query parameter that is sent into this query at runtime. So this is going to come from this.params.query, or actually data. All right, and that looks good. Now, the next thing we want to do here is that we want to create an app.js file, actually not a GraphQL file. So let's delete this. Yes, I'm sure. So we want to create an app.js file, and this would contain all of the helper functions for our app. So let this app, and I'm just going to delete all of this because we would need a create item function. And for this function, we would go on to start typing in the body for the function. So for this create item function, we want to get the user's data. So this is going to be const data, and this is going to be an object that has an ID, right? Don't forget, this ID is going to be generated on the fly. So I have this random ID generator string using math or random here, which is just going to generate the data. And if you take a look at what we have here, so I'm just going to use console log. So this is console.log data, and let's go to the log. Let's look only at consoles. This is also a feature that is new to Appsmith. You can now legit use console log within Appsmith without having to open up your browser console. So if I go run this, you can see that we have an object that has an ID in it, but that's not all what we want. We also want to actually take the data from the JSON form widget. So this is going to be JSON form one.form data. All right. And if we take a look at this, you can see that we have all of that information here. Although the form is empty, so we actually have an empty object aside from the ID that is being generated. But what we really want is we want this to be typed. So let's use utils.toDynamoDB JSON. And if we go run this, you can see that we actually have the type information now. So ID has been converted into a typed ID, which is a string that has this value. And the same goes for every other data that is being passed into this function, which is awesome. So the next thing we want to do is, now that we have this data, we can take it and then use it to run the create item query. So this is going to be await create item.run, and we can pass in this data. All right. When that's done, we want to close the modal where the JSON form is. So let's do await close modal, and this is going to be modal 1. All right. And the last thing we want to do here is we want to rerun the get items query so that we can view or see the item in a table after the get item query runs to pull in fresh data from DynamoDB. So this is going to be await get items.run, and that looks good. So I'm done with this function, so I can go delete the console log, and we know this function is going to work. So let's hook this function up to the JSON form, and we'll be good to go. So this is going to be command P JSON form 1. Here I am going to go to the onSubmit event. So when this is submitted, or when the submit button here is clicked on, we want to go execute the app.js file, the create item function. That's what we want to do. So this looks nice. Something else I want to do is, if we take a look at the field configuration, I want to make sure that the quantity is of type number. So this is going to be number input. Then let's also make sure the expires at is a date type. So this is going to be date picker. And let us select a date format. So I'm going to scroll down. All right, this is my idea of the perfect date. Year, month, day. All right, and we also want to supply the price. So this is going to be number input. All right, this is the number input, and I think that's all we need to make changes to. So we can go test this out. So let's create a record. So for the title, I'm going to say lorem ipsum. For the image, let's say https google.com. All right, that's not a quote. That's not a column. Okay, that's a column now. So for the quantity, I'm going to say 111. For the date, I'm going to set this to today. All right, for the price, let's set this to 222, for example, and the description is going to be lorem ipsum. All right, so I'm going to hit the submit button, and we should have that record created. So we can't see it right here. I'm just going to try changing the page to see if it comes later on in this table. Okay, this was actually created far down this table. Okay, you can see it here. All right, this is the record we just created. So lorem ipsum, quantity 111, price 222. So this works. We are able to create records and save them into DynamoDB using the functions we just created. So this is cool, and this looks nice. The next thing I want to do before we leave the create item workflow is we want to hook that modal up to the button here so that we can click on this button from the UI and open the modal. I've just been opening up the modal using the omnibar. So let's head over to this button and we can say new. All right. And when this is clicked on, we want to open a modal, and this is going to be modal 1. And let's reduce the size of this button. For the style, I'm going to give this an icon. Let's say plus. That's the plus icon, and that looks nice. So if I go click on this, it actually opens up the modal. Then I can type in the details for the record, hit the submit button, and would have that record saved into the database. All right. Now, the next thing we want to do here is that we want to be able to update information about a record, right? We already have inline editing set up for this table. So we want to be able to take a record, edit it, and save it into the database. So let me show you something real quick. Let's go create a new query for DynamoDB. And this is going to be called update item. The command is going to be the update item command. All right. And I just want to show you an example like we did for the create workflow. So take a look at this. If we need to update, not that, let's copy this snippet here, right? This is what I mean. So if you take a look at this, if we need to have an item saved into the database, this is the kind of query we need to send up. So we need to supply the table name. Then we need to supply the key. In our case, the primary key as we're creating this table is the ID. So we're going to supply or pass in the ID, and we also have to pass in the typed ID, as you can see here. Then the next thing we need to give to DynamoDB is the update expression. Think of it as something similar to an SQL query, but using variables. So if you take a look at this update expression, this is everything here. You can see that this has a set command, and here we are creating variables. So we're setting the image column in our table to be, we're setting I to be used as a variable in place of the image column. The same thing for quantity. We're setting quantity. The variable for quantity should be Q. The variable for expires at should be E. The variable for price should be P. The variable for description should be D. Variable for title should be T. And that's just for the update expression. Then for those variables, we need to go ahead to supply the actual values. That's where the expression attribute values comes in. So for the expression attribute values, what we need to do is give the data for those variables right here, or we have to specify the data for each variable. So you can see that I, which is the variable for image, has a typed data, and this is the actual image URL, as you can see. That's the actual image URL. Same also goes for the quantity, the expires at, price, description, and the product title. So this is what DynamoDB expects we pass up when writing, and this can be so much. But thankfully, we have the power of JavaScript in Appsmith, so we can actually make this much easier to work with. So let's create a function in the app.js file to help us with the update process. So this is going to be the app.js file. And here, what I want to do is create a new function called the update item function. This is also going to be async. And what we want to do is make this an arrow function. All right, so that looks cool. So what we want to do here for the update workflow is that we want to be able to do 3 things. So let's head back to the update item query. So first, we want to be able to grab, we want to be able to get the documents key, which in our case is going to be the ID, and have it typed. So for the ID, this is going to be passed as a parameter to this function. So this is going to come from this.params.id. Next, for the update expression, we want this to be generated with JavaScript and sent here as a parameter. And we're going to use a key called query for it. So this is going to be this.query. params.query. All right. And lastly, for the actual values, what we want to do here is have it generated from JavaScript and passed in here also. So this is going to be this params dot data. All right. So this looks nice. So all of this information is going to be coming from the update item function, and we can head back to app.js to continue building this out. So the first thing we want to do is we want to figure out the ID of the item that is being updated from the table. And the table widget has this property. That's when you have inline table editing turned on. It has this property called updated row. So if we take a look at the updated row, we'll be able to pull out the ID. So let's say const ID is equal to table1 dot updated row. And what I'm going to do is let's do a console log. Let's do a console log here so that we see, so that we see what the ID is. So if I go run this, let's make sure we're only showing console logs, and I'm just going to clear this so that we have everything looking neat. So if I go run this, you can see that in the logs right here, we actually have an object. Let's make this a little bit bigger. We actually have an object that has the information about the row that is being updated. Because we don't have any row in the update state, this is actually just an empty object. So we have image empty, quantity empty, expires out empty. Then we also have these two columns, which are not actual data from our database. So we have to have this deleted as well. So edit actions should be deleted, custom column should be deleted. But for now, what we just need is the ID. So we can easily pull this from ID. So we can easily pull this from ID and convert this into an object and convert this into DynamoDB JSON. So this is going to be utils.toDynamoDB JSON, paste this right in, and we take a look at this. And you can see that this is a typed ID, which right now is also just empty. So the next thing I want to do is let's start trying to figure out the query and the data that will be sent to the update query, right? So for that, let's grab the updates and have the edit actions 1 and have this edit actions 1 removed and the custom column 1 removed, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So this is going to be const update is equal to Lodash. We can use Lodash to pick out those properties we don't want visible. So we are going to use Lodash.omit. All right. And the actual data is in table1 dot updated row. And what we want to remove from this object is we want to remove the ID because we don't want the ID to change. So let's remove the ID. Next, we want to remove the edit actions 1, which is not a real column in our database. So let's make sure this is removed. Then we also want to go ahead to remove the custom columns 1. So let's go ahead to remove this as well. And that looks good. So if we take a look at what we have in the updates object, this is going to be super clean data. Okay, let's rerun that. So this is going to be super clean data containing just the updates from the table widgets without having the ID and all of the other stuff. So this looks nice. Now, what we can do is go ahead to start building out the query for the update item query, which sounds ironic. So we're going to be building the query for the query. So let's start doing that. So what I want to do is first, I want to figure out the keys in this object, the keys in the update object, and we can easily grab that from const keys is equal to object.keys, and this is the update object. So that would be just the list of keys from the update object, and it's going to be an array. You can see just the array keys. Next thing we want to do here is we want to start building the query using these keys. So this is going to be const query is going to be a string that starts with set, as you saw. And what we want to do here is create the other part of the query string using the keys that we are grabbing out now. So this is going to be keys.map. For each key or for each item in key, we want to convert this to a string that has the property name and the property variable, if that makes sense. So I'm going to be using the template string syntax, and here we are going to have the property name, and then we're going to have an equal to, and we're going to have a column. Then we want to have the property variable. So I'm going to be using a template here, and this is going to be I. But for what we want to do, we just want the variable to be the first item in the string. So for example, for image, the variable for image should just be I, for example. The variable for quantity should just be Q, for example. For description should just be D. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be I, and we just want to grab the first letter in that string, and we're good to go. And we can do dot join here, and we want join by comma and a space. So this looks good. Now we can go display what we have in the query. So this is query. All right, let's run this. All right, and if you see this query, this is what is generated out. So you can see we have a string called set image. Set image is the variable I, quantity is the variable Q, expires that is E, price is P, description D, title T. So we have that query built out with JS. The last thing we want to do is build out the actual data. So let's do const data. All right, so this is going to be keys.reduce. So what we want to do is convert the keys back to an object, but make sure we're using the variable names, right? So this is going to be reduce, and here we have the accumulator and current value. What we want to do is return an object and have the accumulator start out as an empty object. All right, so similar drill, we're going to spread what was already in the accumulator, and then for the new item we are creating into that object, or the new item we're adding into the object, this is going to have a name that is going to be based on the current item from the keys. So this is going to be template string, and what we're doing is that we're just going to do C index 0, right? And for its actual value, this is going to come from the update object, and this is going to be a T of that index, if that makes sense. So we're just going to pull the actual data for the item we are creating a variable for from the update object. And if you take a look at what we have here, so let's do a console log of data. All right. Yeah, so let's do a console log, and you can see that this just has the variables. So I is an empty string, Q is an empty string right now, E is an empty string, P empty, D empty, T empty. One other thing we need to do here is we need to add the column, so I just need to add this. And you can see that this actually has the variable names that DynamoDB requires. So the last thing I'm going to do here is let's convert this to DynamoDB JSON. So this is going to be utils.to DynamoDB JSON, passing the object. Let's test this out. And you can see everything here now has a typed information. Everything here has a type, and this just works so well. So now that we're done generating the ID, the query, and the data, we can actually go call the update item query. So this is going to be await update item dot run, and here we want to pass in the ID, want to pass in the query, we want to pass in the data, which looks good. Then when that's done, we want to reload the state of the application so that we have fresh data coming in from the database. So this is going to be await get items.run, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to delete out the console log we have here, and then we can give this a try. So let me take a quick sip and we'll give this a try. All right, now so let's jump to the table widget. And what we want to do here is for the save discard button, let's go to set this up. So when the save button is clicked on, we want to go execute app.js, the update item function. So let's try to test this out. So I have this record I created, the lorem ipsum record. So I'm just going to change the name to lorem, for example. And for the first quantity, I'm going to change this to 333. And for the price, I'm just going to change this to something like 555. All right, so that's looking good. When you click on save, we should have that function on. All right, and as you can see, data got saved into the database. So the title is now Lorem. The quantity is 333,555. So functionally was, and I'm happy to say that's for the update. Now the showing you setting up the delete item workflow, which will be using these delete or trash icons on the table. So it's going to be very easy. You've already seen enough of DynamoDB JSON and how DynamoDB query works. So let's quickly create this. So this is going to be delete. All right. And for the query, this is going to be delete. Or the action, this is going to be delete item. The actual query is going to look something like this. It just requires a key, which will be a typed key, as you saw earlier from the previous queries we worked on. And the last thing we need here is the function. So let's grab that function. Let's go to app.js. And here, I'm just going to add the last function we'll be using today. Let's make sure this is properly indented. Right, that looks good. And that's the delete function. So what this does is that it grabs the ID of the row where the icon button, the hash icon button is clicked on, converts it into a typed, then runs query and refreshes the state of the application. That's just what this function does. I'll head back to the table widget, and for this table widget, we want to go and delete button here. And when the delete button is clicked on, app.js and the delete item function. So we have that set up. Now I'm going to try delete the Lorem Ipsum product we created earlier. So let's delete that. It's gone. It's deleted. It doesn't show up anymore. So that's how easy it is to set up the delete workflow. And at this point, we're done with the application. What to do is let's give this a name, so we can do something like text widget. This to be right, text widget. This is going to be DynamoDB admin panel. All right, and we can make this really large. The app has the title. So now that this is a full product app, we can go ahead to deploy this. So let's deploy this. Okay, I'm going to set the canvas size. Right, let's see. Seems it's a bit slow. All right, here we have application done. So we're able to read data, which is being displayed. We're able to create data. This is a dynamic form, by the way, which is awesome. We're able to edit data in the table, and we can edit this, we can save, discard it, and also able to delete the trash icon. So this has been a really cool application to show you how to create CRUD admin panels on Appsmith using DynamoDB. And I hope this encourages you to go try out building cool things with DynamoDB. If you do not already have an AWS account, I think for your first 12 months, you are given a couple of credits that can let you try out various aspects of their services. So feel free to sign up, go create a DynamoDB table and play around with it. Now, before we go, I'm just going to show you how the upload CSV to DynamoDB tool works. So let me go grab the link to that app, and we'll take a look at how it works together. Okay, so this is the original app, and this has the imports CSV to DynamoDB JSON utility. So let's edit this and see how that works. All right. As you notice here, so I'm just going to set this to fluid width. So as you notice here, this is a file picker that allows you to pick a file. So I can go pick the product CSV file, for example. Once I click upload, you see that CSV file has been converted into JSON. JSON. And how that happens is we have an app.js file that does, actually it's in utils.js, that does the CSV to JSON workflow. So this util.js file has the JSON to DynamoDB JSON function. Then it also has a function called CSV to JSON. And what this does is that it takes the data from the file picker, converts it into JSON, sticks it into the Appsmith store, and everywhere in the app has access to that JSON data. And this function right here that you see right here is a modified version of what is in the omnibar. So we actually have snippets in the omnibar. I think that is Command J. Okay, yeah, that's Command J or Control J, and you can start searching for CSV, and that's the CSV to array function. This is the original function. The function you see on this page is a modified version of the one you find in snippets. So if you like to take a look at more snippets, you can either use the keyboard shortcut or you can click on the omnibar, go to snippets, and search for a snippet that interests you. So what we used is the CSV snippet, and that's the code right here. So this takes the data, converts it to JSON, and everywhere else in the app has access to that JSON data. Now, the interesting thing is that when writing bulk items to DynamoDB, DynamoDB does not allow you to write more than 25 items at one go to the database. So it means if you have a record or a CSV file with 100 items like I have here, you would not be able to put everything into the table in one go. You would need to break that data into a bunch of ranges of 25 items and then keep putting the items into the table in batches. That's just how DynamoDB works, which is amazing. So they have a batch write query or batch write item command, but like I said earlier, you can't write more than 25 items into the database at a single time. So what I did here is that I created a function called batch write, and what this does is that whatever data has been converted to JSON from your CSV file, this function is going to break it into a range of 20 items. So we're going to have, for example, if you have 100 items, we're going to have 0 to 19, then we're going to have 19 to then we're going to have 19 to 40, and on until the entire range of your 100 items is broken up into a batch of 20 items. Then this function is going to keep putting each batch into the database. It's going to make a query to put each batch into the database. And when it's done with the first batch, it's going to run the same command for the second batch, the third batch, until it's done putting all of the data into the database. So this function makes it seem as if the upload is done in one go, but actually it's done in a batch of 20s. So I can show you that this works. I think you already saw this, but it's fun to see it again. So I'm going to delete every item in my product table. So let's delete these items. All right, we have a fresh empty table. And now we can head back to, here is the CSV to DynamoDB JSON. What you just need to do is supply your table name. In our case, it's products. Then go ahead to click on the upload button, and it's going to separate it into the batches, upload each batch into DynamoDB. And once it's done, it's going to reset the state of the application. So if we go check DynamoDB and we refresh, we have 99 items in the database, just like you saw earlier. So this is a cool util, and it's going to be helpful if you really need to migrate data from other storage databases into DynamoDB. So this utility and the actual app is all part of the app.json here. In fact, I'm going to show you how to quickly import this before we go. So let's go to appsmith.com. I already have the app.json downloaded, so we're going to try importing it. I'm going to show you how to import it. All right, I think my network is flaky. All right, so here I'm just going to go to my tutorials workspace, and here I'll go to import import from a file. That's what you want to select. Then go browse, select the file where you have the app.json in after downloading it. So for me, it's going to be in, you can't see this right now, but I'm going to grab my app.json as we speak. So this is app.json. I've grabbed it and this is imported. So now I need to connect it to my actual data source. So for me, it's going to be in EU Central 1. And here, I'm just going to supply my access key, which I showed you how to get earlier. Okay, that's the wrong key. So this is going to be my access key. And this is going to be my secret key. All right, we can test. Looks good. We can go ahead to save this. And that works nicely. And here we have the application ready to use. So this is going to have the products dashboard. And this is also going to have the import CSV to DynamoDB JSON util. So go check this out. And once you're here, don't forget to star the Foundry repo. This is a repo we're putting together so that you have access to all of the resources we show on live stream videos, templates, sample apps. Everything is going to be here in the Foundry repo. So that's appsmith.org/Foundry. Once you get here, hit the start button and let us know you find this valuable. In fact, I'm just going to do this right now. I don't think I have this start. Now we have 3 stars, which is awesome. All right, so that's it for our live stream today. And I think I can stop sharing my screen. All right, so I hope you had fun while building this along with me. This was a really long live stream to show you how to use the database. That's because DynamoDB can be a little bit difficult when you're using it for the first time, but I hope you had fun building this with me. So stay tuned for our next live stream. And next week, we should have a live stream to talk about our plans for the Hacktoberfest so that you can win a cool t-shirt like this. All right, so that's all. And see you guys later. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.